Hey everyone, and welcome to Let's Talk About, where each episode I talk about a movie, a TV show, a video game, a Broadway show, or anything on my mind. On this episode, I'm talking about this year's nominees for the 71st Primetime Emmy Awards. From the shows that got a lot of love to the ones that didn't, and the ones that were just completely snubbed. So let's get started. So, no surprise here, HBO led all nominees with 137 nominations, with about a majority of those coming from Game of Thrones and Veep, followed by Netflix with 117. It'll be interesting next year to see if HBO can kind of keep this momentum, especially now losing two of their big award contending shows. So it'll be interesting to see what next year holds for them. I know they have like Big Little Lies, all that fun stuff. So it'll be interesting to see what 2020 is going to be like without like Game of Thrones and Veep and stuff like that. But we'll get to that a little bit later on. So Game of Thrones, which wrapped earlier this year, around May, leads all nominees with a record-breaking 32 nominations. It easily broke a 25-year standing record held by NYPD Blue, which scored 26 nominations in 1994. So they got nominations in kind of like every category you could think of. I know they got like lead actor, lead actress for the first time. They got supporting actor, supporting actress, guest actor, guest actress. And funny enough, some of them submitted themselves. So like I feel like if you just coughed in a scene, you're just gonna get nominated. I feel like the Emmys just want to honor the show like in any way, shape, or form. And I remember like a lot of people were really like not loving the season. A lot of people thought it was like really weak. That I know there was like a petition saying, hey, HBO, reshoot this. Like, this is bad. But it's interesting. Like, the Academy loves Game of Thrones. I mean, they've won several times already. So it is fitting for the show to have a huge farewell. But 32 nominations, that is incredible. But yeah, speaking of those 32 nominations, a record-breaking 4 supporting actresses nominated from one show. That has never happened in the history of the Primetime Emmys. So well done to them. So the show that follows Game of Thrones is The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel, which scored 20 nominations, which was last year's comedy series winner. And now they're going to kind of compete against Veep. So it'll be interesting to see, will the old come back and get this award one last time? Or will the Academy kind of continue and honor Mrs. Maisel? All right, so let's talk about some of the nominees this year. So one major, huge note right now. So if you guys are wondering, where is Big Little Lies, where's Stranger Things, where's Handmaid's Tale, they were not eligible for this year's Emmy Awards because they premiered after the eligibility cutoff, which was the end of May. And what that means is that the shows will be eligible next season. So they'll be eligible for the 72nd Primetime Emmy Awards. But this is an interesting thing. 4 of the last episodes from season 1 of Handmaid's Tale, they were eligible for a handful of awards, including directing, writing, as well as guest acting. So we still see the Handmaid's Tale here. They scored a total of 11 nominations, including guest actor and guest actress for the series, which isn't surprising. I felt like even though they were not eligible for many of the top tier awards, like the Academy loves this show. It would have been surprising if they didn't find a way to nominate them at least just for what they were eligible for, which was like 4 episodes. So the reason why they were not eligible for drama series or for any of those categories, you had to start in at least 6 episodes, if I'm not mistaken, of any series to be considered eligible for those awards. Yeah, so let's talk about the nominees. Drama series, you have Better Call Saul, Bodyguard, Game of Thrones, Killing Eve, Ozark, Pose, Succession, and This Is Us. Here's the interesting thing. Of these 8 nominees, only 2 of them are repeat contenders. 6 of them are first-time nominees. This is crazy. I don't think this has happened a lot at the Emmys, so this is kind of interesting where you have like a huge group of newcomers to this category, and like 6 of the 8 eligible are like first season shows or second season shows. So it's kind of cool to see like at least some fresh face and some new blood in these categories. Over on the comedy side, we have Barry, Fleabag, The Good Place, The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel, Russian Doll, Schitt's Creek, and Veep. Now, interestingly enough, the only contending shows that were from last year were Barry and The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel. Fleabag, The Good Place, Russian Doll, and Schitt's Creek are all first-time nominees, while Veep is a returning nominee because they weren't eligible last season. I'm super excited for The Good Place. I'm so happy that the show finally scored a series nomination. I love this show. It's hilarious. It is really charming and it's like so quirky. It's so funny. It's just everything I love about comedy. And it's so cool to see a show like Schitt's Creek, which is on Pop TV, that no one knows of, that no one, I don't think, knows it exists at all. So it's kind of awesome to see the show kind of come into its own, into its popularity, and to see people freaking love it. It's awesome. Over on limited series, we have Chernobyl, Escape at Dannemora, Fosse Verdon, Sharp Objects, and When They See Us. So this is such a great group of limited series shows. I haven't seen any of them, which is funny. I saw like maybe one episode or two of Fosse Verdon, and hopefully I get to see all of them. I know I heard so many great things about When They See Us. That's definitely on my list, especially once I start getting Netflix again. Like, once I start resubscribing to Netflix, that's definitely going to be one thing I will be watching. Over on television movie, we have Black Mirror, Bandersnatch, Brexit, Deadwood the Movie, King Lear, and My Dinner with Her. The one thing I actually did not know is that they made a Brexit movie, which is something I never thought I would ever imagine someone making, but it kind of makes sense. It's really topical, it's current, it is definitely on a lot of people's minds. I'm just kind of curious if we're going to make a movie about everything happening in America right now in like a couple years. Speaking about things happening in our world this time of year, variety talk series: The Daily Show with Trevor Noah, Full Frontal with Samantha Bee, Jimmy Kimmel Live last week tonight with John Oliver, The Late Late Show with James Corden, and The Late Show with Stephen Colbert. Now, interestingly enough, I feel like of all these nominees, The Late Late Show kind of like sticks out like a sore thumb. Not because it's a bad show or anything, it's just like that one's like a little bit more lighthearted compared to the others, which focuses a lot more on politics. But it's interesting, like compare that one show to everything else nominated. There's like variety, there's sketch, there's carpool karaoke, all that, and then you have the other nominees, which is just politics, comedy, politics. So it's like, it is an interesting thing when you have like one show kind of stick out compared to like everything else around it. On the other side of variety sketch series: At Home, Amy Sedaris, Documentary Now, Drunk History, I Love You America with Sarah Silverman, Saturday Night Live, and Who is America? So I love variety sketch. I think variety sketch is freaking funny. SNL is kind of like the grandfather of the group. It's the longest running show on primetime television, or technically late night television. It's really just been here forever. So we all love SNL for some reason, or we hate it for some reason. I love it. So yeah, there's that. And then for competition program, you have The Amazing Race, American Ninja Warrior, Nailed It, RuPaul's Drag Race, Top Chef, and The Voice. Here we go with this. So not much of a major change here. I think the only major change is Project Runway got swapped out for Nailed It, which I actually have to say, Nailed It is hilariously funny, and I would never go on this show because I would not want to embarrass myself into baking something. But I wish that there was kind of a little bit more of changes here. I feel like competition program, variety talk, and variety sketch, I feel like there's not much of an interchanging here. Like, it feels like every year is always the same nominee, or every year one show will get swapped out for another. I would just like to see kind of some switches here and there, and yeah, so like I just want to see some changes. I just want to see like kind of new, fresh shows be nominated and kind of be recognized, but that's not how the Academy works, and that's fair. Okay, so before we kind of get into like the surprises and snubs, let's talk about some interesting facts. So of course I brought up the Game of Thrones thing, but on the other side of things with HBO, Julia Louis-Dreyfus, she can make history as a performer with the most individual wins in Emmy history if she wins lead actress in a comedy series. She currently shares the record with Cloris Leachman with 8 Emmy Awards. This is kind of interesting because like she can make history, which will be incredible, but it's crazy enough to know like she's won Emmys for Seinfeld, she won Emmys for The New Adventures of Old Christine, she won Emmy for Veep. I have to say she is an incredibly funny actress, and it would be kind of cool just to see her break this record. And I think she will. I think she's like the front runner. I think her definite rival in this category is Rachel Brosnahan, but I feel like because this is the week's last season, they want to honor it one more time, and I think they're gonna do it. So on to the surprises this season. So Mandy Moore, she finally got in for lead actress in a drama series for This Is Us. She was eligible for the past few seasons. She didn't get in. A lot of people were surprised. A lot of people are now happy. Hopefully, they are happy she finally got in. What's interesting though, now Justin Hartley, he's the only original cast member, so the one that started. He's basically the only one of the original 5 to not be nominated for an Emmy yet. So maybe that would change next season, but it's interesting that of all of them, they've all have received Emmy nominations except for Justin. So we'll see what happens with that. Another surprise, Rent scored a few nominations. It scored 5 overall nominations, including a nomination for Variety Special Live. I liked the Rent live production, but it wasn't technically live. It was like live for like the last 20 minutes of the show. But it was interesting because I wasn't expecting Rent to kind of get a lot of love compared to like past contenders like Jesus Christ Superstar, Grease, The Sound of Music. Like I was expecting like more low line nominations, which are like production design and hairstyling and costume design, which I think, if I'm not mistaken, they got all 3 of them. But to get nominated for Variety Special Live, it's not surprising, but at the same time it is surprising because it was only 20 minutes that was live. And all of the other stuff was like pre-taped stuff, which, hey, I'm happy for the show. I liked it. I love the special. So yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, Rent is Rent. Rent is amazing, but it confuses me to see it be nominated, especially after what we saw, because it wasn't overall the best production ever. It wasn't the worst either. I feel like they were holding back when they were doing Rent live, and I feel like I should do an episode about this, which I might. But hey, congrats to them. And another huge surprise, James Corden seems to be like an Emmy favorite. It seems like he's nominated every season for something, and this season he got in for hosting a reality competition show that I feel like no one's heard of, called World's Best. He kind of got in, and it surprises me because the show was like a freaking huge flop. Like no one watched it. Surprisingly enough, it aired after the Super Bowl, and then like ratings slipped like just the second episode. Like huge numbers, crashes down, crashes even further, crickets. So I feel like in this case, like they're just voting based on name, which I mean, it's not bad, but it's just like, why vote for him if we're just gonna give him an award for something else? Like, are we this in love with the guy? Like, I love James Corden. I love Carpool Karaoke. I just don't think he needs to be nominated for everything he does. Because I feel like if he breathes next, he might just get an Emmy nomination for that. So from the surprises, let's talk about some snubs. So a lot of A-listers were snubbed this season. George Clooney, Julia Roberts, Emma Stone, Jonah Hill. They were all completely snubbed from their eligible categories. Clooney was not nominated for lead actor in any limited series or movie. Julia Roberts was a nominee for Homecoming, which a lot of people thought she would, for lead actress in drama, but alas, she wasn't. And then Emma Stone and Jonah Hill, their Netflix limited series Mania was completely snubbed. It scored 0 nominations, which is crazy because like I saw the trailer for it, I was like, okay, this might be like Emmy bait right here. They're definitely gonna be nominated. Pencil them in. I felt like the reason why a lot of people weren't nominated in those categories, I felt like limited and TV movie is so competitive. There's so many great limited series out there right now that those fields are going to be super crowded. And TV in general, I just think it's just incredible. Like, we have so many incredibly great shows out there right now, so it's like hard to choose the 6 best or the 7 best actors and actresses out there. So yeah, another thing that kind of surprised me when it comes to snub, Masked Singer, they scored only 1 nomination. They scored 1 for costume design, which was kind of expected, but I kind of expected them to get into for reality competition, but they didn't, which surprises the heck out of me because it was the #1 singing competition show of the season. It was also the #1 new series of 2019. I know the Emmys don't always equal to rating success. But I honestly thought that they would have recognized a hit show like this with a reality competition nomination and maybe a few other nominations. But just to get costume design, I feel like that's a good start. I feel like the only reason why I got it because those elaborate costumes, those costumes are kind of the main part of the show. Like they kind of make the show because every week we don't see the celebrity, we see them in just random costumes. So it made sense for them to be nominated for that. So yeah, but I wish that the show still got a little bit more love. Well, speaking of shows that didn't get that much love, Big Bang Theory, which also wrapped up this final season, this past season, they went off with a low note. So compared to Game of Thrones and Veep, which got plenty of love, The Big Bang Theory was left at the starting gate, only scoring 3 nominations, including directing for its series finale. Now, I feel like it wouldn't have even gotten in for directing if there wasn't a rule that mandated a multi-camera series had to be nominated in that category because everything else is single cam. So I feel like without that kind of condition, The Big Bang would have just been with like 2 tech nominations and that was it. So yeah, it's kind of sad. Like Jim Parsons won the Emmy before. The show's been nominated for a lot of Emmys, but to see it kind of go out with such a whisper, it's really sad. But another show that also went out with a whisper, Unbreakable Kimmy Schmidt, the show which has been nominated for the past 3 years for a comedy series and several other things, they were completely shut out of the race this season, which is really sad because a lot of people thought it would have gotten in for comedy series, but yeah, alas, nope. But the show might have one more chance next season because they're working on an upcoming interactive special, so we'll see what happens there. So maybe they'll get a little love for that. So my overall thoughts on this year's nominees is that there's such a great group of actors, actresses, shows that are nominated. I feel like it's kind of like a nice melting pot almost. Honestly, I wish there were a lot more shows that were kind of given love. I feel like there were specific shows that got more love than others, like Killing Eve, which is well deserved, Game of Thrones, Veep, Marvelous Mrs. Maisel, Barry. Like one category in comedy is like all Barry actors is like, okay, we see that you guys like Barry, we see you guys like Marvelous Mrs. Maisel, we see you guys like Veep, we see you guys like Game of Thrones, we see you guys like, we get it that they like different shows, but I wish that sometimes, even with some great nominees, I wish that they kind of spreaded the wealth around a little bit more to other shows that I felt like could have been well deserved, that could have gotten in, that could have been recognized. Like, did we need to recognize 3 people from one show? Did we need to recognize 4 people from one show? I mean, like, 2's enough. Do we need to recognize like 400 people from one show? I felt like if they could, they would have nominated every single supporting actor and every single supporting actress from Game of Thrones if they could. And I feel like they would have. But overall, this year's nominees are such a great bunch. There are some shows that I watched I wish were nominated, but alas, that's not how it works. It's not a fan voted thing. It is based on the Academy. It's based on a group of voters. Overall, I think, honestly, this season is definitely going to be tough, especially in limited series, TV, movie, comedy, and a few other things. I mean, we know for comedy and drama, we know where they're going to go, but at least with comedy, there's a little bit of a race here because you don't know if they truly are going to go with Veep or are they going to go with Mrs. Maisel. Because, like, drama, we already know, like, Game of Thrones is nominated for 32 Emmys. It's obvious that show is going to already win the Emmy. Like, we know that. But at least with comedy, there's a little more suspense compared to it, which is something I'm looking forward to. I'm looking forward to the suspense of, like, oh, which show's going to get it? Which show's going to get it? Because at least there's a race there. At least there's a race in every other category. Because, like, that's the one thing I love. It's like, I love a race. I love to see who is going to make it past that finish line, who is going to win. So, yeah, I mean, congratulations to all of this year's nominees. Well done, well deserved. So, but yeah, I am super excited to see who is going to take home the Emmys. Now, the 71st Primetime Emmy Award is going to air live on Fox on September 22nd. Then the day before that, a 2-hour highlighted version of the Creative Arts Emmys will air on FXX. The awards themselves will have been handed out on the 14th and 15th. So yeah, there's a lot of Emmys going on in September. I can't wait. I can't wait to see what everybody submitted because I'm that type of person who will wind up watching each actor's tape to kind of figure out, oh, this is my prediction and who's gonna win and stuff like that. But yeah, so that does it for this Let's Talk About. Until next time, you guys, keep on talking.